Ladies and gentlemen, he is back. Now, I wanted to say this at the beginning of the video. It's the afternoon here in Vancouver. I apologize if you hear any buzzing or engines in the background because they've got some guys outside my apartment chopping down some trees, and I assume they're using some sort of a chainsaw or a buzzsaw or something like that. And because we got some pretty big trees and it's a pretty cramped Vancouver area apartment, you can't just chop down one big tree and let it fall because it's probably going to hit something. You have to cut it into parts, and that seems like what they're doing over here. So you'll hear a lot of buzzing in the background of today's show. I apologize for that. But we have some Montreal Canadiens news posted about by folks on Twitter, and we also have an interesting trade update. So, take a look at this tweet posted by Renaud Lavoie. The Montreal Canadiens ended up claiming Sammy Blais from the Maple Leafs earlier this morning, and they also were the only claim on Blais. So technically, he can be sent down to Laval. So we'll know what's next in store for Sammy Blais. The Montreal Canadiens Twitter account then tweeted out later, the Canadiens have claimed forward Blais off waivers. He will join the Laval Rocket. So, all's well that ends well for Sammy Blais and the Montreal Canadiens. This was always the intention that Montreal had when they got this player in the first place. Blais is a Laval Rocket member right now after being a part of the Maple Leafs organization in enemy territory for a mere however many days this was. But Sammy Blais is 29 years old, 6'2", 205, left-handed winger, signed till the end of this season, making $775,000. Just like the Cayden Primeau situation from Toronto over to Carolina, this is a very rare NHL move. It's kind of interesting how, even though it's rare, it's happened twice this season, both times to Toronto. But the timeline of Sammy Blais goes as follows. In 2024-2025, he has 40 points in 51 games with the Abbotsford Canucks in the AHL. He has 44 penalty minutes as well. Keep that number in mind as you head over to the AHL's Calder Cup Playoffs, where Sammy Blais scores 19 points in 23 games, 6 goals, 13 assists. He also has 77 penalty minutes in that span. Blais was an absolute menace to deal with in the Abbotsford playoffs last year, and alongside some other dogs like Arshdeep Bains, Max Sasson, Linus Karlsson, Artur Shilovs, it was a really good squad that was put together, and they ended up winning the AHL championship. Fast forward into the summer, and Blais becomes a free agent only to sign with the Montreal Canadiens on the contract that he got. It was seen as a pretty interesting move. The Canadiens trying to get some extra forward support, some veteran depth there. They liked the skill, they liked the tenacity, they liked what Sammy Blais brought. And, you know, he actually has had a pretty good stint or two in the National Hockey League. Yeah, he was never really, super productive. 5 points in 40 New York Rangers games in 22-23. But after he got sent over to St. Louis that season, he had 20 points in 31 games to end off that year. He kind of explodes for offense out of nowhere once in a while. And that did happen in the AHL last year. In fact, I'd say he's always been a pretty productive AHLer. So Montreal decided to take a chance on Blais. And then before the season began, they sent him down on waivers because they wanted him to play in Laval. He ended up getting claimed by Toronto, and this is where we see that transaction. On October 5th, 2025, Sammy Blais gets claimed by the Toronto Maple Leafs from the Montreal Canadiens. They also claim Cayden Primeau from the Carolina Hurricanes. Give it a few weeks. Guys start coming back from injury. Cayden Primeau gets sent down on waivers. He gets claimed only by Carolina. Sammy Blais gets sent down on waivers. He gets claimed only by Montreal, which is now why he is able to go from Montreal down to the Laval Rocket, where I have honestly no doubt he is going to tear it up. He is going to be such an effective piece on that roster. I mean, He had 3 points in 8 Maple Leafs games this year. He was productive. That's not a bad point production rate at all. Do 3 divvy 8 multiplied by 82? That's on pace for about 31 points on a season. Not bad for a guy making under $1 million. Not bad for a guy who has those physical tools either. So Sammy Blais getting claimed by only Montreal allows him to go to the AHL scot-free. There isn't any extra waivers that's needed here. Of course, Toronto was trying to send him to the Marlies, but ultimately that didn't work because Montreal stepped in and they were like, hey, we want this guy on our AHL team. We signed him in the first place. So, Sammy Blais, welcome back to Montreal. It's a rare NHL move being pulled off here. You rarely see it go down where a team reclaims a guy that they lost on waivers earlier, and they were the only team to claim him, thus allowing that player to go to the AHL. But this is not the only thing I wanted to talk about in regards to the Canadiens in this video. I wanted to turn your attention to an article posted on ProHockeyRumors.com by Bradley Keith. Speaking about Laval Rocket talent, in an episode of the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro from earlier this week, insider Pierre LeBrun of TSN shared that several teams have looked into Adam Engstrom and considered what it would take to land the defense prospect in a trade. A third-round selection of Montreal in 2022, Engstrom's play in the AHL has been really good. 14 points, 18 games. Still early in just his second North American season, the Swede's professional experience with regular BK has helped him transition into a Canadiens role, boosting an already deep prospect pool. Engstrom made a strong case to make the team out of camp, and although he came short, he has excelled in the AHL and has earned a recall earlier this week. Having just turned 22 and not set to reach RFA status until 26-27, it is not like Montreal should be in any particular rush with Engstrom, especially with Caden Gooley set to miss 8 to 10 weeks. Engstrom only just made his NHL debut yesterday with 10 minutes of ice time and a win over Utah. However, with their pursuit of a top 6 center, naturally, Engstrom emerges as a candidate for a possible defense-forward swap. Montreal lacks another strong left-handed defenseman in their cupboard, but with Lane Hutson's presence alongside a Gooley and a wealth of right-handers to boot, there is not so much of a need at this time. What about Mike Matheson? He's also there too. Montreal has fellow lefty Mark Delgaizo, 26 in the system, who has continuously bounced between the NHL and AHL so far this year as he vies to make his team debut. Clearly, the organization is high on Engstrom, who drew into the lineup first, fresh off being named AHL Player of the Week last Monday after tying a Laval franchise record with 5 points in a single game. Delgaizo, though, signed on a 1-year 2-way deal, brings enough to the table as a depth option between Montreal and Laval that they could potentially afford to lose Engstrom at some point. He offers poise and well-rounded play at 6'2", projecting as at least a high-floor, solid middle defenseman. However, he looks much more comfortable so far in 25-26, especially offensively, and could flourish into a true top 4. It is unlikely Montreal would jump to just any call in their prospect now, but Engstrom's name could be worth watching as the season goes on, especially in a deal for a top 6 center. The Habs have made strides this season as they aim to push for the playoffs and win in a round for the first time since 2021. It's a luxury to have strong prospects like Engstrom on hand, allowing Kent Hughes to make a noteworthy addition without affecting the current group. Whatever may come next in the meantime, Engstrom will look to build off his debut and continue to fill in for Caden Gooley. So that's a pretty good update too, right? Seems like Adam Engstrom could be on the trade block, or there will be folks potentially asking about him in a trade-like capacity, which works hand in hand because the Canadiens kind of need a top 6 center. So, yeah, nice update there, eh? If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the like button. If you didn't, the dislike button's down there for you as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Sammy Blais getting claimed in this rare move and being sent down to Laval, and the latest on Adam Engstrom trade rumors. Seems like he's getting some interest here. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.